Hello everyone, my name is Braden, this is Airless Quill 9, and in today's video, we are going to talk about Hobgoblins. Now in this video, we're going to take a look at the 2024 Monster Manual stat blocks for the Hobgoblins that are present in this book, and we will talk about what changes have been made to them since their 2014 iterations, and discuss whether or not these are improvements or detriments to the stat blocks themselves. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and I'll give you a brief overview of what exactly Hobgoblins are. So, Hobgoblins embody the primal urge to grow and spread, expressing such drives by bending the world to their whims. Lone hobgoblins claim woodland territories and plunder the wilds. In groups, they form hierarchical, martial societies bent on conquering lands and stripping them of resources to serve their expansionist zeal. Hobgoblins often subjugate animals, monsters, and destructive fae, particularly goblins and bugbears, to serve their plans. Hobgoblins might ally with dragons, warlords, the servants of warlike gods, or other powerful creatures that promise them control of new territories. Should hobgoblins bring an entire land to heal, they seek new conquests, venturing across seas, into the Underdark, or to stars and planes of existence beyond. Many hobgoblins serve the violent god Maglubiet, whose hunger for conquest matches their own. Hobgoblin followers of Maglubiet flourish in the infinite battlefield of Acheron, where they endlessly indulge their drive for domination. These war-obsessed hobgoblins employ elaborate tactics and strange weapons, which they sometimes unleash on worlds of the material plane. An important thing to discuss with hobgoblins, however, are hobgoblin warfare tactics. So, the drive to subjugate and pillage is part of hobgoblins' supernatural nature, though a few might repress their warlike tendencies or turn them to more useful ends. Thankfully, the 2024 Monster Manual gives us a table to roll on called Hobgoblin Strategies, and this is to help inspire dungeon masters on how a hobgoblin might carry out its conquest. So, this is a D6 table, and the options here state that a hobgoblin works to build a vessel, to carry hobgoblin armies to new conquests, capture monsters and train them to fight, collapse a region into the Underdark so riches can be sifted from the ruins, construct a giant machine to strip resources, convince devils, dragons, or hobgoblins from Acheron to invade an enemy land, or help short-sighted merchants undermine a government or despoil the environment. So, a lot of interesting strategies for warfare that hobgoblins might employ. But, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the first hobgoblin stat block that we're going to talk about today. So this is the Hobgoblin Warrior. Hobgoblin warriors might hunt and raid alone, or with trained mastiffs, wargs, goblin gangs, or other allies. They employ simple tactics and exploit every advantage their allies provide. They willingly sacrifice companions in the pursuit of victory. The Hobgoblin Warrior is a medium Fey goblinoid of lawful evil alignment. They have an armor class of 18, an initiative of +3, 11 hit points, a speed of 30 feet. For ability scores, they have a strength of 13, a dexterity of 12, a constitution of 12, an intelligence of 10, a wisdom of 10, and a charisma of 9. For their gear, they have half-plate armor, a longbow, a longsword, and a shield. Senses, they have dark vision of 60 feet, and a passive perception of 10. Languages, they know Common and Goblin. And the Hobgoblin Warrior is a challenge rating 1/2 creature, granting it 100 experience points and a proficiency bonus of +2. For its special traits, the Hobgoblin Warrior has Pack Tactics, which grants it advantage on attack rolls against a creature if at least one of the Hobgoblin's allies is within 5 feet of the creature, and the ally doesn't have the incapacitated condition. Actions, the Hobgoblin Warrior has 2. The first is a longsword attack, which is a melee attack roll with a +3 to hit and a reach of 5 feet, and on a hit it deals 2d10 + 1 slashing damage. The longbow, on the other hand, is a ranged attack roll with a +3 to hit and a range of 150 to 600 feet, and on a hit with it, it deals 1d8 + 1 piercing damage plus 3d4 poison damage. So this is the Hobgoblin Warrior. So what exactly changed in 2024 from the 2014 version? Well, there are a couple things to talk about. First off is the warrior part of the name. In 2014, this was simply just called the Hobgoblin, so they have added in warrior to the name itself, and this is to distinguish it from every other Hobgoblin, which I appreciate the small change there. The next immediate and interesting change here is that hobgoblins are now considered fae, and this is something that happened across the board with all goblinoids. So this is a mechanical change that is pretty interesting to say the least. Next up, the Hobgoblin Warrior has been granted proficiency in initiative rolls, which it did not have in 2014, so that's nice to see there. Next, we have the addition of the gear section in the stat block. This is not present in any 2014 stat blocks, so this is nice just to show exactly what type of gear can be looted off of these warriors. Pack Tactics, of course, is an entirely new trait for the Hobgoblin. In 2014, this was a trait called Martial Advantage, which allowed the Hobgoblin to deal additional damage if it was within 5 feet of an ally. Now, in 2024, this is simply Pack Tactics, which grants them advantage on attacks if at least one of their allies is within 5 feet of them. So, honestly, that is kind of an improvement because the damage portion of Martial Advantage has now been reworked into the actions themselves. So, in 2014, the longsword and the longbow were both present here. However, the longsword only dealt that 1d8 + 1, or 1d10 + 1 if it was two-handed, and then that longbow only dealt the 1d8 + 1 damage. So there are damage improvements here, which are quite nice. The longsword got an extra die of damage, which is nice to see, and then the longbow actually had some poison damage added to it, which is quite interesting. Overall, I really think they did improve upon the Hobgoblin Warrior here, and this is definitely a much more interesting stat block to run, and probably an even more potent threat considering the advantages of Pack Tactics that are going to make that warrior a little bit more versatile in combat. And on top of that, those attacks are going to hit pretty hard. So yeah, overall, happy to see what changes have been made to the Hobgoblin. Next, we're going to talk about the Hobgoblin Captain. Hobgoblin Captains are battlefield tacticians. They lead their allies to victory by employing martial skill and rallying others with orders and threats. Hobgoblin Captains usually oversee Hobgoblin battle groups or gangs of weaker monsters. The Hobgoblin Captain is a medium Fey Goblinoid, lawful evil in alignment. They have an armor class of 17, an initiative of +4. They have 58 hit points, a speed of 30 feet. For their ability scores, they have a strength of 15, dexterity and constitution of 14, intelligence of 12, wisdom of 10, and charisma of 13. In their gear section, they have a greatsword, half-plate armor, and a longbow. Senses, they have dark vision of 60 feet and passive perception of 10. Languages, they know Common and Goblin. And the Captain is a challenge rating 3 creature, granting it 700 experience points and a proficiency bonus of +2. For its special traits, the Hobgoblin Captain has Aura of Authority. This states that while in a 10-foot emanation originating from the Hobgoblin itself and its allies have advantage on attack rolls and saving throws provided the Hobgoblin doesn't have the incapacitated condition. This is definitely an improvement on the Pack Tactics trait itself, since this is an emanation that the Hobgoblin's allies will benefit from. And yeah, very cool trait there and very useful. Granted, it's not going to grant any special benefits to other Hobgoblin allies other than the advantage on saving throws, since they already might have that pack tactics, but there could be some examples where that might actually come in handy, especially if the Hobgoblin captain is leading other types of creatures. So I like Aura Authority a lot. In the action section here, the Hobgoblin Captain has a multi-attack, allowing it to make 2 attacks using Greatsword or Longbow in any combination. The Greatsword is a melee attack roll with a +4 to hit and a reach of 5 feet. On a hit, it deals 2d6 plus 2 slashing damage plus 1d6 poison damage. And the Longbow is a ranged attack roll with a +4 to hit, range of 150 to 600 feet. And on a hit, it deals 1d8 plus 2 piercing damage plus 2d4 poison damage. So what exactly is different in this stat block compared to the 2014 iteration? Well, there are a couple changes here. First off, much like the warrior, the creature type has changed to Fey. The captain is now proficient in those initiative rolls, same as the warrior, and we actually have some hit point changes here. In 2014, the Hobgoblin Captain only had 39 hit points, but in 2024, it now has 58, so it's been granted an additional 3 hit dice, which greatly boost its defensive capabilities there, which will make it last longer in combat. Next, we get the addition of the gear section, and there is a small change here, and that's the addition of the longbow. In 2014, the Hobgoblin Captain had a javelin that it would use as an attack, and yeah, that has been replaced with a longbow now, so there are some changes there accordingly because of that. Aura of Authority, of course, is an entirely new trait. This has replaced the Hobgoblin Captain's Martial Advantage, which granted it additional damage as long as it was within 5 feet of an ally. So that is a very nice new trait, and I think that's going to be very more beneficial for the captain in the long run, and especially allies who don't have a way of gaining advantage in combat. So pretty nice to see that there. Next up, we have some changes to the actual multi-attack. The Hobgoblin Captain did make 2 attacks with its multi-attack beforehand. However, this was just relegated to its Greatsword. Now, it can use its Greatsword or Longbow in any combination, meaning it could make 1 Greatsword and 1 Longbow attack, or 2 attacks using just the Greatsword or just the Longbow. Of course, any combination thereof. So that is a nice versatility option for that multi-attack. Next up, there is some definite improvements to the actual attacks themselves. The Greatsword, of course, got that additional d6 of poison damage added to it, so that does increase the actual damage capabilities of the captain, which is really nice to see. And then that longbow has now replaced the javelin, which has granted it a much more massive range there, and the damage has also been greatly improved over the javelin, which just dealt 1d6 plus 2 piercing damage before. So yeah, definite improvement on the damage there, and the range is just a much better option for this captain to have access to. So overall, definite improvement with the stat block. This is a much more versatile combatant, a much more powerful combatant than before, and definitely worthy of that challenge rating 3. So yep, very happy to see the changes made here to the Hobgoblin Captain. Finally, last in this section for the Hobgoblins is the Hobgoblin Warlord itself. The Hobgoblin Warlord leads armies of Hobgoblins and their allies, using their experience and strategic minds to command amid the ebb and flow of battle. The Hobgoblin Warrior is a medium Fey Goblinoid of Lawful Evil alignment. They have an armor class of 20, an initiative of +5, they have 112 hit points, a speed of 30 feet. For ability scores, they have a strength of 17, dexterity 14, constitution 16, intelligence 14, wisdom 11, and charisma 15. They're also proficient in dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, so say 4 saving throw proficiencies, which is quite nice. In their gear section, they have 9 javelins, a longsword, plate armor, and a shield. Senses, they have dark vision of 60 feet and passive perception of 10. Languages, they know Common and Goblin. And the Warlord itself is a challenge rating 6 creature, which means it has 2,300 experience points and a proficiency bonus of +3. Much like the captain here, the Hobgoblin Warlord has the Aura of Authority. However, the emanation on this one is 30 feet, and it grants the exact same benefits as the captain's Aura of Authority. So with that increase to the emanation, that's definitely a nice improvement to that trait, but the benefits themselves are self-explanatory and very nice to have there. In the action section, the Hobgoblin Warlord can make 3 attacks, and it can use its Javelin or Longsword in any combination. Javelin, of course, is a melee or a range attack roll with a +6 to hit, and either a reach of 5 feet or a range of 30 to 120 feet. On a hit, it deals 2d6 +4 piercing damage, and the target of the attack speed is decreased by 10 feet until the start of the Hobgoblin's next turn. So you have a status bonus that is applied on a hit with the Javelin, which is quite nice to see. The Longsword, on the other hand, is a melee attack roll with a +6 to hit, a reach of 5 feet, and on a hit, it deals 2d8 +3 slashing damage. Reactions, the Hobgoblin Warlord has the parry reaction. This triggers when the Hobgoblin is hit by a melee attack roll while holding a weapon, and in response, the Hobgoblin can add 3 to its armor class against that attack, possibly causing it to miss. Overall, there is a lot going on in the stat block, and this looks like a very powerful Hobgoblin option, but of course we do need to talk about what changes have been made to the stat block from the 2014 version. So there are some definite changes here. First off is that creature type change, same as the other Hobgoblins. Next up is the proficiency in the initiative rolls, which is nice to see. And yeah, there are hit point increases for this stat block as well. In 2014, it had 97 hit points, and now in 2024, it has 112, which is quite nice. This means that the Hobgoblin Warlord has gained 2 additional hit dice, which it did not have before, which has increased its hit points by a bit. So quite nice to see that improvement there. Next up, this isn't really a mechanical change, but the Hobgoblin strength score has increased from a 16 to a 17, so kind of interesting to see that. Don't know why it was changed, but it is a small improvement, even though it's not a mechanical one. The Hobgoblin Warlord did gain proficiency in dexterity saving throws though, which it did not have before, so that is quite nice to see there. Finally, there is the addition of that gear section, but now thanks to that gear section, the stat block now specifies that the Warlord carries 9 javelins, which it could use to make attacks. And that's good because the javelins will get expended should it make ranged attack rolls with that, so nice to know exactly how many javelins the Warlord has access to in order to make ranged attacks with that weapon. Of course, there is the addition of Aura of Authority, and this has replaced that martial advantage from before, so same basic changes there. Overall, the Aura of Authority is an improvement to the stat block, especially with that 30-foot emanation range, so quite nice to see that there. Finally, there are some changes here in the action section. The versatility of the multi-attack, allowing it to use either Javelin or Longsword in any combination, is something new, so that is nice to see there. And then the damage and other effect for the Javelin is entirely new for this. So in 2014, the Javelin only dealt the 1d6 +4 piercing damage. Now it is dealing an additional die damage, which it did not before, so that makes that attack much more damaging, which is quite nice. And then it also adds on that additional effect of decreasing the target's speed by 10 feet until the start of the Hobgoblin's next turn, so that is a definite improvement there. So quite like the changes to that attack there. And then in a likewise manner, the Longsword has had an additional d8 applied to its damage, so that damage has increased accordingly, so nice to see that there. Overall, definite improvements for the Warlord, additional hit points, it's going to act sooner in combat, gain additional saving throw, which it didn't have before. is dealing more damage than it used to before, and that Aura of Authority is giving it advantage on attack rolls and saving throws, including to those of its allies should they not already be benefiting from those effects. So overall, definite improvement to this stat block, and I think Hobgoblins are looking pretty good in 2024 because of these massive changes to the stat blocks. So yeah, overall, great changes to the Hobgoblins. Definitely a lot more martially inclined than before. I like that they have swapped out the martial advantage trait because it was like a conditional, it was conditional additional damage should they meet the requirements of it. And now what the Hobgoblins are doing is they're getting advantage on attacks and possibly saving throws if there's a captain or a warlord in the battle as well. And I just feel like that's a better mechanical benefit than before, because now damage is baked into the attacks themselves and they're not something that is technically conditional. So it just increases the power dynamic of the Hobgoblin stat blocks themselves. And that's just a better improvement in my book. It makes the Hobgoblins a much more accurate and potent threat. It's going to make them feel like they are hitting their challenge rating on every single turn. And that's really important when running higher level monsters, because you want them to feel intimidating and versatile, and they want to seem scary in combat. So overall, very impressed with the changes to the Hobgoblins. They are very cool stat blocks. Definitely the warrior classification for the goblinoids in general, and they're doing quite a bit. We've already talked about the bugbears and the goblins before, so this is the other trio of the goblinoids. So yeah, very cool changes there. Very happy with the Hobgoblins, and I would love to use some goblinoids in the future. But that is going to be it for this particular video, so thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. It went a little bit longer than normal, but that's okay since we did talk about 3 stat blocks today. So hope you all enjoyed this one. Appreciate your support. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you like this type of content and want to see more. Until the next video, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all later. See ya.